There we go. Cool. Yeah, so maybe I'll try to do this like once a week, and maybe it's like digital office hours or something where people can just come in and ask questions, or we can go over activities from the week or something like that.
Oh, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think that could definitely work. I don't watch football, so I don't really care. You know?
Yeah, my dad's downstairs. He's probably screaming right now.
Nice. You guys got the repo I sent? Oh, wait, I didn't link the repo. There we go.
All right, cool, thanks. The cleanse.
It's very punny. I know. Give it like another minute or two. Mike, have you talked to Kevin? Like, do you know how he did in the hackathon?
No, I haven't heard from him actually.
Okay.
He was like reaching out to us while we were in class on Saturday.
Yeah, I
but
saw that.
I didn't see what's going on with him today though.
Okay. He's probably beat up right now.
Yeah.
If he actually I know you're allowed to leave and come back, but he may have just stayed. I don't know. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen. Desktop. All right. You guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll just we'll get started, and if people jump in, we can fill them back in.
All right.
Cool. All right. Did everybody get a chance to download or clone the Git repo?
Yep, I got it.
Cool. So you don't have to really worry about that too much right now, but I think like if you guys ever wanted to add functionality to it and make it your own, I would say definitely go for it. All right. So what we're gonna walk over today is a command line Sims type game where you'll create a character and they have a bunch of activities they can do, and it's like the Tamagotchi constructor activity we did, but like with a lot more. So we'll go through this piece by piece. So, all right. So first thing, I'll just show you how it works. App.js. So I set a default. If they don't want to put it in their name, it's always going to be Dr. Flan Medicine Woman. I don't know why, just messing around. So we'll put in my name, and I'm 30. So this is all you need to do to create your character. All of your attributes will be created at random based on your age, which I'll show you the code for that. So just saved everything. You can see, created a save ID, all this fun stuff. So age 30, hair color red, picked at random, health 88, which gets generated based on your age. Board true, because we haven't done anything yet. Hungry false, potty false, and bank account. And then there's music, which is going to be built off of another constructor. And so, yeah. So start off pretty easy. So then what do you want to do? So you can eat. You can potty. What did that do? Oh, no. I forgot that I couldn't get the potty to work.
That's not good.
You can see here, I just restarted it.
Uh-huh.
And it says pick a saved character because it read from a JavaScript file. So every time we create a new character, it saves. And we can pick a character from there.
That's cool. So what, it just like logs it to like a text file or?
Yeah, we use, you can see here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it just writes it. We use the FS package because, The FS package, it'll write to anything. You can write out HTML. You can write out anything you want. So it's not, don't feel limited to it just being like a .txt file, because you can really do whatever you want. All right, so we'll go to chillax, listen to music, which will be operating through our music constructor. You can see here, I use Spotify, and so this is all my playlists from Spotify. So I'll go into my October list, pick a song. So You Just Listen To Keep You in Mind by Gordon Banks. And now if I hit save game, it just wrote it into my save file. So that way it just pushes in and like keeps it, track of all the music you listen to. All right, so pretty much the basics of this right now. So I'll start walking through the code. So your entry point, and you'll notice up here, this is a, you can see like the function, it has, it has a parenthesis around it. So the entire game is a function that gets executed on run. So what this is called, it's called a immediately invoked function expression. And what that does is that it works really well, especially with Node.js, because nothing gets saved to the global scope anymore. Everything gets run inside of this, which means that if you're using a node package, or maybe you're creating a node package, you don't have to worry about like, if you put a name in that doesn't, if you're making something, but one of your packages uses the same name. And that actually happens more often than not. So what most NPM package developers do is that they wrap their entire thing in this function. That way everything is scoped locally to it. You could still pass in arguments and everything like that, but this way you could it's a self-contained function.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't like interfere with like any other outside files that have nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So like, say you're using another package that had something called save game in it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't run into clashing names.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And it's really good for you don't want to like overpopulate your global space. So, I mean, obviously the way everybody's been doing it all along is fine. This is just this has gotten more popular over the years, especially with Node coming up. So it's just kind of like the new cool thing that everybody's doing. So this is, if you ever see IIFE, that's what this is. So, go back here, make this a little bigger. Immediately invoked function expression. And W3 Schools has a pretty good way of showing it off, so I'll send this out to you guys. I'll send it to shared resources. And here's another one. So this is basically like an idea of closures too. It's, you're protecting, you're really just protecting all of your variables by keeping inside of here. So nothing can like happen outside of it that messes it all up.
Got it.
Yeah, so now we'll just run through the entire thing. Also, one last thing is I actually don't have to put a name in. You could just run a function if you never want to refer to it again. But in this case, we want to refer to it. That way maybe we can call it again if we need to and all that fun stuff. So first thing we need to do is we bring in our FS package. The next thing here, we haven't used this yet. And you know how a couple weeks ago with the, what was it? Leary. We told you guys to just put your keys, kind of out in the open for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll walk through this. So what you can do is you can use this .env package. And what it does is it sets up environment variables. So you can set them locally with a .env file. And then wherever you go to like launch your site or deploy your site, you can set them up there too. Like all of them have a place for this now. Send this out to you guys.
Is that .env in the CLIMS repository, or would I have to download it? Because like
So
when I tried to run the app and it said throw error.
So I'll select. You'll have to create your own .env file. So the entire the idea of this is, you get a lot of access tokens, you get client secret IDs, and you don't want to share them with everybody because they're for you, and you don't want people taking them and kind of using up like your limits and everything like that.
Yeah.
So what I did was in my git ignore file, I put in node modules. VS Code creates like some weird files for me, so I don't want that going up in my GitHub repo because that's unnecessary to you guys. I also put in my .env. That way that'll never make it up to GitHub because I just want it on my end for my local, when I test it locally. And then in my .env file, you just do a simple key. I'll send the .env file. All right. I don't really care that you guys have my ID in secret. In this case, it's not a big deal. But when you do things in like production, you don't want that. So what this does is that by bringing this package, we can now use these environment variables like all over the place in our apps without having to ever expose our keys. And where does it show up? So you can see right here where I set up the Spotify client, the same exact package you guys used for Leary. So you can see here I put in right here. So for ID and secret, in your Leary app, you guys ended up just like pasting that ID in there. But in this case, now because we have process.env installed, we can actually just call it like from anywhere. And then when we launch it, as long as you call Spotify client ID in your production environment, it'll work the same way. It's pretty cool that way.
Got it.
Yeah, so it's a really cool way of just like protecting yourself, and you can hide everything.
What would happen if somebody got your keys? What would the?
It depends on the keys. Twitter rate limits you guys. Like if you made like a ton of connections to the Twitter NPM package or the Twitter API, like in a short period of time, you'll get rate limited, which stinks. I think did you have that issue with your project? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, for the game database project?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we made too many AJAX calls and it was like, stop.
Yeah. So that's what happens. It gets rate limited. They don't want that many connections being open to their API like at once from the same source.
Got it.
So most good APIs are going to rate limit you because they don't want to get like bombarded by connections and that'll crash them. So it's always like the best thing to just hide all of your keys, just like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what kind of file is that? Is that just
.env? It's basically just a text file. You can see right here, it's just a plain text file.
Okay.
It's just like your git ignore.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Where it's just kind of just there.
So it knows what to do with it though, right?
No, it knows exactly what to do with it as long as you have the .env package installed.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it just knows everything. Node's like really smart at picking up on things. They have a ton of they just have like a ton of behind the scenes workers, looking for everything, which is very cool for us because we don't have to do that much work.
Yeah.
All right. And then I bring in Inquirer, which you guys have used before.
Mhm.
I bring in my constructor. So a lot of times when you have, like, say you had multiple constructors or different modules or components for your sites, you would want to make like a subfolder for them. So in this case, I just made a subfolder called constructors, so all my constructors can live in there. That way my root isn't like a mess. Then I grabbed var your sim, just created a variable, and I created a save game array. Then I create a function called read save. So what this does is, using the FS package, on load, it's going to read to see if there's a saved character already. So it's going to grab all the information from it. We got to parse it back in because when I save it, I stringify it. So we have to make sure it's actually in JSON by the time we get there. And then we run a function called load game. So if it's load game, where is that? There we go. So load game info, which means that we're passing in here our saved game file.
Mm-hmm.
So we check if game info.length, because it's an array, is greater than 0, which means that there's obviously something in there. Then we want to run this function called saved game, and we pass game info through it. Or else we just run our new game function.
Okay.
So let me break this up a little bit. So what we do here in the new game, we just use Inquirer. We prompt you for character's name. I set a default, Dr. Flan Medicine Woman. And then I put in your age. So how old is your character? Any age between 7 and 70. I just kind of made that up. I didn't want people putting in like 0-year-olds. So sorry, Tom, your newborn can't play the game. And then we validate it. So we've gone through the validation a few times so far with Inquirer. So this one, we're just making sure that it is actually a number and that it's between 7 and 70. And if not, tell them it's the wrong age and you guys haven't read the instructions.
Got it.
So in our callback afterwards, or our promise, we run a function. Just giving you guys like a little teaser here. This is a new ES6 way of writing functions. You can see here, instead of saying like function new char deets, you can just say it and it knows what to do. And that's how it uses like this fat arrow. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but start like teasing it a little bit now. So then I console log new char deets, which I'm going to take out. Too many console logs happening. Then the your sim that we created right here becomes, we run our new character constructor, and we pass in new character deets.name and the age. And we pass in play sim because it's a callback. We need a way to get that information back. And then we run a method called set attributes. It's going to randomly set all of your attributes based on your age. And then it's going to save the game immediately. And I'll go through, this will all come together later. But if you have a saved game already, you get all that information out. It stores in an array. We push all the characters into this array. Then we go through Inquirer. We take all of these character names and we pick a player. And then in our callback, we do, because I put in the end here, I pushed in create a new character just in case there was a saved game. We want to give them the ability to create a new character anyway.
Yeah.
So if character name equals create a new character, we run the new game. Or else var loaded character, it's an empty object. And then we just loop over it and we say if saved character data array at i.name equals selected character.character name, then our loaded character is now our saved character data array at I. So we can now use that. And then we just run through our constructor again. So we save all the information, but you still need to run the constructor to kind of like get everything working with the methods and stuff, since we aren't going to save the methods to the .json, the JS file for the saved character. So there, your sim.haircolor, we load up their hair color because we don't want it to be randomly picked anymore. Get our health back, get our bank account. Then we run a method called print character stats, which will just kind of just give you your vitals. And then we run a function called play sim. So here we have play sim. It's a function. It's another inquirer prompt. And it's just a list of things that we want to do. So we pick an activity, we use a switch case. Who can tell me what a switch case does?
It's like a if statement, right? So
yeah.
When your case is met, run a different command.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a fancy way of writing a bunch of if statements, which is really nice because you can see how much like this looks so much cleaner than a million if statements.
Yeah.
So we run a switch case over the activity we picked. So if that activity picked equals chillax, listen to music, then we run the method yoursim.chillax, and we pass in play sim. So we pass this function in to our constructor function methods. And we're doing this because it's a callback. We need it to run after whatever method we just ran happen, and we need to give it to them somehow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like they would have unless I set up the play sim in our constructor functions, which would be stupid. So we can just give them, we just pass it along. That way they can just use it later on down the road.
Okay.
So based on which one it is, you can chillax, you can eat, you can potty, you can save the game, and you can save the game and quit, or you can just restart the game.
Okay.
So here we pass in a false in a play sim and a true in a play sim. So false would be, when I show you the constructors, it's basically for, do you want to quit the game? And if it was true, then it'll just exit out. All right. So does anybody have any questions kind of how we get set up here?
Just a refresher on the .then. That's basically like this won't happen until the previous thing happens.
Yeah, exactly. So it's called a promise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many things now they run asynchronously because you can get prompted something from Inquirer. You can just sit there for like an hour and not answer that question. So we want to make sure that this doesn't execute until we get that information out of it.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a good way of like just creating a good flow in your code because you need to wait for something to happen to get the information out of it. Then we can do something with it.
I know with the Ajax call after the .done, the code kind of, I guess, runs asynchronously. Is that the term for it? Where it's like, it doesn't.
Any Ajax call is going to be asynchronous because it's only as good as the source you're requesting information from. So,
got it.
So like, say you were requesting information from a site that just wasn't fast for whatever reason. You want to make sure that you can still get that information out of it and then do something with it. So the dot done and dot then they're pretty much the same idea.
Does this one run like the same way, like the exact same way, or?
Yeah, it waits like if this was like your Ajax call right here, it would wait for this to finish and then it would go to here.
Okay.
And it would take the information returned from that Ajax call, and you can get it right here by passing it in as an argument.
Okay.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions on this part of it?
No.
Cool. So I think the most important part of this is just for you guys to like understand is the immediately invoked function expression part of it. It's just like it's a pretty awesome concept. It's up. I don't want to say it's like up and coming. It's kind of already here. Let me find I noticed that one of these had it.
You showed us that, what was that, ES6 you said? The function, the new function?
Mm-hmm.
Should we be using that more often, or?
You don't have to just yet. We're going to do like a whole section on ES6 when we get towards React, because React is pretty much all in ES6.
Okay.
It's not like fully brought in yet, so you have to start using, what is this as a basic? All right. This meeting now is unlimited minutes. All right. What was I saying? I'm sorry. But like what you would have to use some right here would be like, it's called Babel, and it transpiles your code back down to like regular ES5. Yeah, so because not everybody's supporting it yet, which is stupid, but we have to make it work. So
okay.
Let me see if I can find. You know what it was? The weather.js package. That was all wrapped in an immediately invoked function. So like whenever you required it, that function runs and it returned everything for you. Which is pretty cool. Cool. So, typically when you're making something like this, like your app.js is the entry point to your, to your entire app. So this is where you kind of just set up the rules for like, if you do this, then we go over here and we get this function out of it. And if we do this other thing, we can go over and do something else with it. So it's kind of just like a router almost.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes requests in and we just figure it out from there.
With the IIFE, you said that, so once it's wrapped in those parentheses, it runs itself like?
Yeah, so it's basically, let me see if I can take this somewhere. Like it wraps in the parentheses and then you can see afterwards, you put another set of parentheses around it, behind it.
Oh, so it's like running the function, but it makes
it's you're basically creating a function and executing it all in the same line.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's just all working that way. It's a little weird, like the first few times you see it, because it's like, the hell is this? Like there's nothing in this. What's going on? But it's actually incredibly helpful. It's really great, like I said, for node packages.
Which function was that?
This one,
the run game.
Yeah, so like the entire.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like instead of just writing run game function at the end, like below it. Yeah.
So this would be instead of just doing, like we don't want to like pollute our global space, because remember every time you create a variable or anything, it's globally scoped.
Right.
So it's a cool way of like kind of protecting all of your variables from the window.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, you don't have to immediately put this into practice. It's something that's worth knowing, and then use it where you want to use it. All right. Does anybody have any questions on anything? Is everybody cool with the .env? Like why we use it?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let's go over to our main constructor. So you can see here, I didn't put this one in a immediately invoked function expression. I just wanted to do it once and just kind of show you guys. So here's our character constructor. So we bring in the FS package, and I bring in my music package, my music constructor. So here's another thing we haven't used yet, const character. So with ES6, there's now, instead of using just the term variable, you can be a little bit more specific, and you can use const, which is a constant, which means it can't be reassigned.
Okay.
And then there's something called let. So let would be like, it's mutable. You can kind of just change things around here and there. All right, so we create our function. It takes in a name and an age. Yeah, so we create a save ID. We generated at random. I picked a really big number. I mean, if somebody happened to get like that number twice, I don't know. That would be a little. I didn't feel like putting in more logic for that one.
Yeah,
but there are ways to do it.
Yeah.
So then this name equals name, which we passed in. This age, age that we passed in. And then we just set this hair color, this health, this bored, this hungry, this thirsty, this potty. I think I did forget to put that in there. Moron. Been a long weekend. All right. So we go all the way down the line, and then we do this dot music equals new music, and that just creates it just runs our music constructor function. So we can that way we can get all of that information inside of this dot music. And then I did var this equals this because I was having scoping issues, so I needed to be able to access this like deep down in some callbacks. So I just saved that as a variable.
Okay.
So we can reference it.
Alex, can we use const here instead of variable?
Yeah, we can use const.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of like softballing, like, using one here, one there. That way it wasn't that nuts. But yeah, you can totally use const because it's never going to change.
And let, what is the major difference between three of them? Or can we use three of them?
Between like const and var?
Yeah, let.
Let is pretty much like the new var. You can still use var. It's still going to work. Everything's fine. Obviously, we've been using it all along, and it works just fine. It's just like it's a nice way of knowing that maybe, especially with const, it's a nice way of knowing that something can never change. Like even if, no matter how much anybody tries, it'll never change. It's immutable.
Okay, so if we give const a is equal to 1 to 3, so we can't assign the same number. Like I can't give const a is equal to 4, 5, 6 anywhere in the same file, right?
Yeah, like so if I said like const number equals 1, then I try doing number equals 2, not going to work. It'll still be 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't reassign.
It doesn't reassign it.
Yeah. Which is incredibly helpful when you have things like constructor functions. Like you're never going to change it. You're never going to reassign a constructor function.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's also nice for like your mental sake, because like you can start looking down your code and you don't see a million variables. You just see like let's here, consts are here. So it kind of helps you, visually piece out your code.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice. So I created my character constructor, and then all of my methods, I prototyped them. And the reason you can prototype them, and you don't always have to do this, it works the same way if I just put this.saveGame equals function inside of the constructor. You can use prototyping. Say you were creating like millions of characters, and it'll take up a lot of memory. to save them, because every time you ran new character, if save game was inside of here, you would create save game again with that object. So by prototyping, you can just save them to the prototype, and it creates basically a reference to the constructor. So any new character you do create, it automatically inherits a reference to the save game function, which is pretty nice. So that way, like, everybody just talks to the one save game function, as opposed to, you know, creating them a million times and they all have their own, you know, like, spot in the memory taken up. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I don't quite get it, but I don't know if I have a question for it.
No, so it's,
what exactly is prototyping? Like,
so prototyping is saying like what your constructor, think of it, it's like a template for how you're gonna create your objects.
Yeah.
So with the prototype, you can save it to the constructor, but every time you create a new object running, you know, your constructor function, it takes all of this information and it recreates it on that new object.
Okay.
Same thing with all the methods. So if you had a million characters, that would be a million objects that have this save game function. You know, this print character stats, like this set attributes, this chillax, this eat, this potty. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah. So
then what does the prototype then reduce that to, I don't know, a more manageable size or something? Or
yeah, exactly. So you create it once, and every time you run your constructor function, it doesn't copy those methods over. It creates references to them. So that way, like, if you have a million characters, it doesn't take up as much memory space.
So instead of creating, it just uses what's already there.
Exactly. It just it just inherits it from, because the constructor is like, consider the constructor like whatever object you create with a constructor function. The constructor itself is like its parent. And every time you run a constructor function, that parent's going to pass down all those attributes and basically clone them to that new object, which is in turn going to take up some memory. Not a ton, but like when you have a million people, then it starts to add up.
Yeah.
So by prototyping some of your methods, because your methods aren't really going to be like unique to each character, they're, you know, every character is going to do the same thing. You create it once with a prototype, and it kind of just like saves once. Then every time you create and run the constructor function, it creates references to all these methods instead of copying them and cloning them into the new object.
Okay. So is that like a good practice for functions that you would want to have inside of your character constructor? Like,
yeah, I mean, if they're not like, if they don't need to be edited and personalized for each object,
yeah,
then it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a good practice to get into. Again, it's not gonna, like, we're not building ridiculous apps that are gonna like ruin our memory, but you know, it's a cool thing to practice. So first method we create is a save game function. It takes in two arguments, quick game and play sim. And if you remember from our app.js, we pass in quick game false or quick game true. So that way it knows what to do. We're basically handing logic over to it. And then we get our play sim function, like our callback function, that we created here, we passed in here. So we can then come in, you know, do all this information, but then at the very bottom, we can execute that same play sim function that we created in a completely different file.
Oh, okay.
So that's essentially like how callbacks are supposed to work. you hand them something that you want to be executed after they're done with their request.
Okay.
So, it's we've been doing this, for a little bit now with all these packages. So I think it's cool to see like how we created our own here. All right, so we have our var save data is an object. So save ID, this dot save ID, name, this name, go down the list. Then console log it. I've been having problems with the save character. It's not saving 2 of them, so I got to fix that. But right now it works really well with 1. So we have our var saved array. So we read the file back first, see if there's a character already created, because say I create a character and then I listen to music and I want to save that. I don't want it to overwrite my character. I want it to kind of check to see if I exist already and just kind of update me.
Okay.
So we have our saved array and our return data. So if there is a result, so if there's something already in here, then return data is going to equal json.parse result. And the reason I put it in an if statement is if I tried to JSON parse result and it was empty, it would kick out an error.
Okay.
So we want to make sure it only happens if there is a result. Then I just let them know save was found. Console log return data. And then I see, if return data.length equals 0, if there's nothing in here, then saved array equals save data. And since it's an array, I put the square brackets around it. And save data is all this information from here. So if there was somebody found, then I create a variable called found save. It equals false. So then I run a for loop over it. So for var key in return data, which is another way of doing a for loop. If return data.save ID equals this.save ID, found save equals true, I console log this hit because I was testing a bunch of stuff. And then saved array at key equals save data. Think of key as like I. It's like at that iteration of it.
Okay.
So this way, we take our new character information, our most up-to-date one from the current game we're running, and then we take all that information and we pass it in to kind of update our character stats. If I listen to a song, I want it to show that I listened to a song. So then, if we don't find this, if found save is false, like say we looped over all of this and the IDs didn't match up, then saved array, we just do return data.push save data. Because we just want to take an array and we just want to push that new character in. And then when that's all done, we do an fs.write file. And we do, tell them where to write it to, and then json.stringify saved array. And then we just run our callback function. So if there's an error, console log something went wrong, return console log error. If quick game was true, because if we pass it in over here, false or true. So if quick game is true, we're going to save it. And then we're going to return false, which will back us out of our app. It'll just bring us back to our command line. If it's false, then we'll run our play sim that we passed in as a callback over here.
Okay.
Anybody have questions on this part?
No.
Cool. So now we have another method called print character stats. Function, console log. I just put this in here, just kind of break it up. Do another for loop where I'm going to loop over my object. So for key in this, because this is always going to refer to the object that it's living inside of. And even though it's a prototype that technically lives like elsewhere, this keyword still inherits like the current object that you're calling it from.
Okay.
So there, if type of this key, so it's like it's in a loop over the entire object. If type of this key returns is not a function, then we want to console log it. I don't want to console log all the functions and methods that are built in. I just want to console log the actual stats and information. So that's all this does right here.
Okay.
Also, this is another new thing right here. This is also from ES6. This is a new way of console logging things, or like writing out strings and pet. Because like in the past, I would have had to do console log. I'd have to do like key plus I'd have to do that, which gets really annoying sometimes when you're, running through it.
Yeah.
So what this does is, right here, it takes everything in, and you can just put it in. You can see here we're using backticks. So it'll create our string, same way. We use the $sign in curly brackets, and inside of our curly brackets, we put in what variable we're trying to pass in. So that way we can just kind of write it all in one line. We don't have to worry about like concatenating strings and using plus signs and all that stuff, which I'm sure you guys have noticed is a little messy at times.
Yeah.
So this is the nice new way of doing it.
So if it's in curly brackets, it knows that it's not a string. It's a.
If you use the $sign in the curly brackets, it knows that it's not a string. It knows that it's passing in a variable.
Okay. It's kind of like jQuery in a way?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So ES6. So again, you can keep doing it this way. There's nothing wrong with anything. It's just there's a newer way. So if you want to take a look at that and kind of put it into practice, that's cool. If not, no big deal. And then we just console log and stats so I know that it ended.
Okay.
All right. So now we have our set attributes function. So first thing I do here is I create an array of hair choices: black, silver, blonde, beach blonde, brown, red, and hot pink. Then I randomly select one of those. So I just run it through, hair choices, math floor, math.random times hair choices length. And you can see since it's inside of here, that'll return an index for one of these. So that way we can select it at random every time it's run.
Okay.
And then we set our health. So everybody's health starts at 100 by default. And then we subtract it by math floor, math.random, multiplied by this age. So the older you are, probably the worse off your health is going to be.
Okay.
But the older you are, your bank account, you've been working longer, you've been doing a little bit more, so you should have some more money. So everybody starts off at a base of $2,500, and then we add math floor, math.random, multiplied by this .age, and then times 4. I kind of just made them up. Just kind of was playing with what numbers made sense. So that way we can get some bank money. And obviously, if you're older, you've been working longer, and you should have the money.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that happens, we run through this .print character stats, which we created up here. So everybody, you guys get this part? It's cool?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, this is all like made up stuff. Like I'm just, it's just like kind of just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So here, character.prototype.chillax function. We pass our play sim through there again, our callback function. So here, it costs money to listen to music, unfortunately, because we have to pay royalties. Not much. You can see it's not that much. It's going to be like between $1 and $3. Or $0 and $3. Yeah. Then this.music.look for playlist. We pass in our callback function again. So this is a method that's going to get created by our music constructor, which we can access because we called it up here.
Okay.
So we're kind of like chaining it down. Then, since we chillaxed, let's boost up our health stats. And then this.board equals true because you've been chilling too long and just being lazy. So then we have our eat prototype, takes in our play sim callback again. This.hungry gets set to false. This.bank account goes down because it costs money to eat.
Mm-hmm.
We now have to go to the bathroom. We print out our stats, and we play our sim again.
Okay.
And then with potty, which was having a problem before, it's just the same idea. Costs money to go to the bathroom. You know, you got to use toilet paper and stuff. It adds up. This.potty equals false because you just went to the bathroom. This.board is true because why not? And then we print our character stats, and we play sim again.
Okay.
How come you didn't do print character stats and play sim in the chillax one?
Because this is gonna go through a bunch of inquirer questions.
Oh, okay.
So it'll just it won't run synchronously. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm.
I could pass that in here and then call it as another argument. That way we can. It's like having two callbacks, pretty much.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. And then lastly, we want to export our constructor function so we can use it in our main app.
Mm.
So does anybody have any questions on this file?
No.
So I would say the prototyping is kind of like the big takeaway from this part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, we tease some ES6 stuff. I wouldn't sweat it just yet because we're going to go full blown into it at some point. So don't kill yourself trying to figure this stuff out. You know, we're just learning JavaScript. And then for me to say like, no, you have to learn the new JavaScript would be kind of, so cool. So you can see here though, like this constructor has a ton going on with it.
Yeah.
So this is why it's good to kind of like separate your concerns a little bit. Like I could have easily added music into here and not use another constructor. But like I wanted the separation of concerns. And that way maybe if I ever wanted to use music again, I can like use it somewhere else in a different constructor.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe I made a pet constructor and your pets can listen to music too. Like really smart pets. Or it's like a parrot that can talk to like Alexa or something. So I don't know. I'm sure that's gonna happen soon.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So before we move on, anybody have any questions on our main constructor?
No.
Cool. All right. Now we'll move on to our music constructor. You can see here, brought in the Spotify package, the one that you guys use in your Leary homework.
Mm-hmm.
Brought in Inquirer and brought in .env again. So first thing I do, var Spotify client equals new Spotify. So you can see here, like even these packages, that's a constructor. You know, Christian made this into a constructor. So now Spotify client is our own object built off a constructor.
Mm-hmm.
And this one takes in these two that we can get from our .env file. So like you'll see the process keyword come up a lot. You know, you've seen process.argv, you know, all that fun stuff with Node.
Yeah.
So process is just something that Node creates. Like if you ever just console logged process, here, I'll just do it in my command line real quick. You can see it returned all of this information. So this is everything that Node has available for us. Obviously, we're not going to use like 90% of them, but this is everything that kind of goes into it. So you can see here, we have, shows you argv. So when you do process.argv, this is what it's getting. So you can see that this is an array, which is really cool. So it'll pass in anything that, you know, anything here that you wrote in your command line when you ran it, it'll be here. And then you can see we have our env property. And like, I mean, this is all of the crazy information that's being given to us right now, that like they create all this stuff.
Is that env made from the package, or is that coming with Node?
So this is with Node.
Okay.
The .env kind of makes these things talk to each other, like the .env package.
Okay.
Yeah, I think by nature it's just like it was never added in, which I find to be kind of stupid. Like I feel like that should just come like from the get-go with Node.
Like standard, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Somebody made it for us, so very cool. And you can see everybody uses it. It had close to 3 million downloads in the last month. So like this is all the information that we get from our env, which is cool.
Alex, can you repeat what exactly is .env?
Yeah, so what .env is, so this is a package right here. So what it does is that you can set up in a .env file. So like right here, you know, I have my Spotify client ID, my Spotify client secret, and like, you know, when you guys did Leary, you created that Twitter keys file.
Yeah.
And you kind of just like imported it, but it's still up on your GitHub. So, you know, technically your keys are, you know, out in the open for anybody to see. So so what this does is you could set up a .env file, and you could just set key value pairs right here, and it's just a plain text file. Like there's no syntax or anything. So you could just like, you can create whatever name you want. Obviously, the more like descriptive, the better when you start having a million keys in your projects.
Yeah.
And then you can just store your key information here.
Okay.
And then what the .env package does is that it lets us access them. What it does is it specifically looks for a .env file. And it's going to find all of this information. And this way we can call it right here. So it's process.env.Spotify client ID. And it knows that because it's right here.
Okay.
And same thing with the secret. So it's a good way of hiding everything, because then when you're all done, you can see in my git ignore file, I have a .env put in here. I don't want it to get pushed to GitHub. So this is a cool place. Like it's a cool way for you to, you know, have all of your environment variables kind of like they're ready for you at all times, but it's also not being exploited, you know, outside of your local machine.
Okay.
So for every project we do in the homework, do we need to have this .git ignore file?
Yeah, from here on out, anything with Node, you're going to want to create a .git ignore. And you'll always want to put in the Node modules. You wouldn't want to push the Node modules up to GitHub because they just change too often. Sometimes they get like, it's weird. It gets a little cumbersome, especially when you start bringing in a ton of packages. It's just like a lot of files. So what you really want your users to do is that you want them to clone it, and you want them to run an npm install. That way it's like a fresh install of everything.
Okay. Would your like application ever break if somebody updated their node package?
It depends on the node package. You know, like somebody could rewrite .env and change how I change all of their methods.
Yeah.
Like if they change .config to .NATE, and then like all of a sudden my code doesn't work because you changed all the naming.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's the best way of. It's kind of out of your hands a little bit, but usually nobody's like, that'd be a terrible move. Like that's like bad business for those people.
Yeah.
So wait. So when you save a package to your package.json file, does it like save like a version? Are there versions for these?
Yeah.
packages?
So you can see in your package.json, there you see like the little caret here.
Yeah.
So that says like if there's more up to date one, it's saying like allow ESLint like version 4.8.0 and higher. So if there's one higher when you download it,
Okay.
then that's cool. If you want it to be strict, you can put in a tilde. So you just do like that. And that's like strictly just use 4.8.0. That's what we know what works.
Okay. So if you know your application is probably going to break if you update your packages, just make it strict instead, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you know it's kind of funky, then yeah. Like there have been times where I've had to actually change how my node modules even worked. Like I'd have to go into my own, go into packages I downloaded and change things, which stinks because like if I ever ran an install, I'd have to redo it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions about the .env stuff?
No.
When you do process.env, does it like add it to the nodes env, or because you have to do process.env? Wouldn't you to access it? I don't.
Well, you know what? Let's try this real quick. Let's just console log. Process right here. And I'm just gonna stop this from running. Here. All right, let's take a look. I actually don't know if they added to the space, but we can take a look. There we go.
Okay, so it does.
So, yeah, so they get added to it. So like you can do like process.env.pager, and it would be less like you would never need to use these. But like think like what env is, it's like it's your environment. It's like what's the environment that this application's running on.
Okay.
So it's basically just getting information literally from my computer. So, it's telling me which Apple pub sub socket render, like what that's running on my computer, iTerm profile, because I'm using the iTerm command line instead of terminal.
Okay.
Like what kind of shell it's running in, all of this information that's basically, that's you, that's like your computer,
So when you add the .env file to the gitignore, it ignores a file, but if someone downloaded or like forked over or cloned your repo, they wouldn't be able to use this without putting in their own IDs, right?
Yeah, so that would be a good time. Like say whenever you're doing something like this, you would want to create your README file and put some instructions in here.
Okay, on how to use it.
Yeah, and like you'd say like first step is like download this. Second step is run an npm install. Then you'd want to set up your .env file. Then you'd give them like some links to how to get their keys and how to name them and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so like this is where you'd want to be a little bit more literal with them. And if it feels like hand holding, it kind of is, but they would have no idea how to run it otherwise.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so getting back to our listen constructor, we have our function music. It's our music listener, our music constructor. First thing I have, this dot songs listened to. It's an empty array that'll get populated as you listen to music. And then I don't think I need this anymore. So I needed this because Inquirer, like, if you use this inside of Inquirer, I think it like looks up at an Inquirer, not the object.
Okay.
So I created a reference for it called this music equals this. That way I can refer to the object it's in.
And there you could use what is it, the const variable thing too?
Yeah, you can use const here.
Okay. And does const stand for constant or constructor?
No, it's a constant.
Constant, okay.
Yeah. So we create a reference to the this keyword. That way we can always access, the parent object. So I think I have these running out of sync. Let me go where. So you can see in here, in our sim character, when you do chillax, it runs this .music .look for playlist.
Mm-hmm.
And we pass in our play sim constructor callback. So this .look for playlist function takes in our play sim callback. You know what? I needed that. I knew I needed that. So we get our play sim callback immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We store it inside of our constructor. That way we can now access and call upon that function when we're all done with all of these processes. So we do var playlist, it's an empty array. Console log loaded, just want to make sure it works. Then I do Spotify client .request. So pass in the link. So in this case, I just want to grab my own. You guys can, if you have Spotify, you can obviously change this out with your username.
Mm-hmm.
And then it runs a .then. So our callback function takes our data. Playlist equals data.items because I'm sure you guys saw this in the Leary homework, but the Spotify API returned like a crap ton of stuff. And
yeah.
we only really cared about the array of songs.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I just wanted to get my array of playlists.
Okay.
And then I take that information. I use the this music because I need to refer to the object I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just do this music.pick playlist, and I pass my playlist data inside of there. So that should be an array right now. So that'll call upon this part. So this .pick playlist equals function, takes in our playlists, which we passed in here. Var playlist names is an empty array. Var picks playlist ID is just, variable string that we're going to save for later. Then we run a for loop over this array. So playlists. And we take all of the names because it's an array of objects and we just need the names for right now because we need a way that we can just access the list.
Okay.
So for each one, playlist names.push, and we pass in playlists at i.name. So that way we can just get the names out of it because then we can pass it into Inquirer. So then we do Inquirer.prompt. So name, playlist selected. What playlist are you going to listen to? So up here, we load up all of our playlists, and then we pass it to this method so we can actually pick it.
Okay.
So it's a list. We grabbed our playlist names already. Then we run our promise. So function playlist picker. So we run a for loop over it. So we go over we don't go over the playlist names. We only need the playlist names array for here because we just need to get the names out. We don't, after this, we don't really need it anymore. But here, this playlist argument, we're going to run over that, which is going to be an array. So if playlist at I.name equals the name that we picked right here, then playlist ID equals playlist at I.id. Because we really just need the ID right now.
Okay.
We don't need all the playlist information. We don't really care about that. We just need literally just the ID that Spotify gives us. So then when that's all done, I run this music dot get playlist tracks, and I pass in my playlist ID as an argument. So everybody's cool with that so far?
Yeah. So for the for loop, it runs before the console logs and this music, right? Like, because it's asynchronous.
No, so this is synchronous. All of this stuff is synchronous.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Like this runs all the way through before it touches here and touches here.
I got it.
Yeah. Like even if this took a long time, this stuff would wait. Because this like when you run a for loop over anything, it takes precedence. As we noticed, like when we were doing what was it? Last week we were doing recursion.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of running a for loop over our inquirer prompts, we had to like rerun it at the end of each callback.
Yeah.
It's the same idea because a for loop is just going to run. It doesn't care what you have going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the for loop inside where it says playlist.length, could you do the key in?
Yeah, you can do that too.
There as well? Okay.
Yeah. There's multiple ways. Like the for key in is a little bit more based on objects.
Okay.
You need to loop through an object. And then,
all right. I see.
Yeah. So like you could do a for loop this way. You could have done like a for each. You could have done, I mean, there's a million ways to do it now. So is everybody cool with this part?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So then we take our ID, we pass it into get playlist tracks. Here, get playlist tracks. The function takes in our playlist ID. So again, var playlist tracks is an empty array. We make a request, and we do, our Spotify Alex Rosenkrantz /playlist ID /tracks limit 30. I got all this information from the Spotify API page. So I just want to get 30 tracks for my playlists. I have some playlists that have thousands of songs in them. I don't want to do that. So we get all of our information, and then we loop over that information. So again, it's data.items because data.items is like the meat of our content. That's what we want. So we loop over it, and we just take our playlist tracks, which we created right here, and we do a dot push, and then I pass in the names. You see here. So I want the track name, and I want the track's artist. And the artist is always going to be an array because if it's like, say it's two people doing a song, they have to give credit to both.
Mm-hmm.
So I always just pick the first one because I don't really care about the second person. So we get all of our information. So data.items@i.track.name by data.items@i.track.album.artist at 0 name. And then we take all that information, which is now going to be an array of all of our songs. And we do this music.pick track playlist tracks. Now we have all of our songs that we can pick from. Anybody have any questions on this part?
No.
So this is all just stuff from the Spotify API. So, nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So then we would do our pick track. So our pick track is going to be a function and we take in tracks, which is right here. We passed it through. And all we need to do, just prompt them. It's going to be a list. And we use our array of all of our tracks as our choices. So then you can pick a song to listen to. So then function track picker, and then we just run a for loop. So we loop over the tracks that we pass through.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just grab, which I'm starting to realize maybe I didn't even have to do this. Huh. I didn't have to do this. Yeah. Because right now we're looping over all of our tracks. Dot length. And then if tracks at I equals track picker dot track selected, which we got from here, then you just listen to tracks at I. And then we do this music dot songs listen to dot push tracks at I. We push it into here. But I just realized we don't even have to do it that way. That was really stupid of me. All we need to do is just push in. Hold on. Since we're already getting all the track information from right here, I didn't even have to loop over and check against each other. I can just say this music, songs listened to, dot push, and then pass in because we're already getting the name out of it. We don't need any special information. We don't need to check to see if it exists, because it does exist because we just picked from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this was overkill. So I can actually still gonna grab these. I can say all right. So I just, grab the song I wanted to listen to it. I push it into songs I've listened to right here. That way we can keep track of all the songs we've listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we run this music.playSim, which is our reference to the callback function, which we gave it in here. So does anybody have any questions on this constructor as a whole?
Good.
Cool. So I think one of the problems we were having last week is that when we did that one constructor assignment, it was like incredibly small.
Yeah.
So it kind of just like begged the question, why would you do this? Because I could do it all in one line. So, I mean, you saw this constructor and you've seen this constructor. They're both pretty hefty.
Yeah.
So you would want to do this because like now I've just created a whole new set of functionality that this can inherit, but it doesn't clog up this space. It just looks a lot nicer. If I need to change something, I can just like go right to it and change it. I don't have to go nuts like trying to find it. I don't have to worry about it maybe messing up something else I have in my other constructors or anything like that. It's kind of just like a nice separation of concerns. Cool. So does anybody have any questions on the entire app as a whole?
No, I noticed there's a wash.js file.
I gave that to you guys because I was going to say if you guys want to take it and create another constructor the same way I did with listen, and you use the request package, and like how we did the OMDB stuff, request, do something like that. You can kind of just like lift it off of Leary and do the same idea. Create a movies constructor or like a TV constructor. Bring it into your sim character. So you would do like that way you can kind of like do the same exact thing with this. And that way you can kind of separate your concerns a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to kind of like just leave it with, if you guys wanted to like take a look at this and add your own functionality, if you wanted to add, an ability to watch TV and keep track of what movies you watch and stuff like that, the same way that we keep track of music, you have a lot of starter stuff here to kind of use as a guide. It's figured like this would be really cool. Like if you guys want to expand upon this and then you can just keep like running with it, it could be a really cool, like fun portfolio item for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And then like, we're going to get into handlebars in Saturday. Wow. Yeah. Like,
what is that?
It's a view engine. So you can render templates and you'll pass in information you get from your Express like API calls.
Okay.
And it'll get all that information and it'll pass it to like a rendered view. And like, so handlebars is it's like a weird combination of HTML, jQuery, like Ajax. And then like they have their own little syntax where it's basically placeholders for like variable content that you get from the back end.
Okay. So is it like bringing it to the front end kind of?
Yeah, exactly. Like starting Saturday, we're going to start doing, we're going to take all of our new back end information and we're going to start being able to display it like not just on the command line.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, so it'll finally make sense. Because we've been doing a ton of stuff
Yeah. Like, how do I show this off kind of thing? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but even like as a command line game, I mean, people, I don't know, nerds love command line stuff. Because they just feel so superior to everybody because they understand.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you have this ESLint.
ESLint.
Yeah.
So what this does, it's called a linter. It's not that important right now. You guys will probably casually like bring it into your workflow as we get towards the end of class.
Okay.
What this does is it kind of goes through all of my code and makes sure that everything kind of like follows like a certain code standard.
Okay.
So this one I loaded up. Airbnb has like their own standards for writing code. Just kind of like making sure things are done correctly. There's like the correct spacing between things. And, sometimes they get really like there's one that gets really sticky about if you don't have a closing semicolon. But then there's another one that just removes all the semicolons. So it really depends on like which one you rather work with. So
I read that article that James slacked out. Should we be using semicolons still, or?
You don't need them. It really depends on where you are. Some like they're not necessary, but some, I don't know. Old school people. It's a weird question to answer because you can go either way.
Yeah.
Best practices, I say, would be to have them.
Okay.
But again, it's all kind of like the world's kind of changing in this sense where we're in like a weird flux time with JavaScript. There's been a lot of growth in JavaScript in the past couple of years. Like ES5 came out in 2009 and then ES6 came out in like 2015. And now they're already on to like ES 8, which isn't like out at all yet, I don't think, or it's like kind of out, but it's really not supported by anybody except for like maybe Firefox and Chrome.
Okay.
So obviously we wouldn't be using that. So it's just weird. Like everything, it's the past couple of years because of things like React and Angular and like all of these awesome libraries where PHP is kind of going by the wayside. Like JavaScript there's been so much attention being paid to JavaScript and everybody, there's so many people developing for it that it's just growing kind of like fast. It's almost like stressfully fast. You always feel like you're going to be like left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say just continue using semicolons. Maybe in time, like you can start practicing without them, or I don't know, check out a couple different linters here and there. Like maybe one day we'll go through we'll do something like this and we'll go through linting like as a lesson.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like worthy of a lesson inside a class, but I think it's like a cool bonus thing because it's like it's more of like a best practices type thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and like we can bring in like we'll do linting, maybe we'll do like testing, like using Travis, which is basically like before you deploy a site, it runs through this thing where like this thing called Travis basically it like stress tests your app. It'll hit all of your API endpoints and make sure that the return data wasn't like wacky or anything like that. So it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, like, there's a million things. It's kind of like it's one of those things where you don't want to spread yourself too thin. At least not at first. Like, learn something, kind of get good at it, then maybe bring something else into your workflow, get good at it, and just keep like, a couple people in my class like got nuts with testing and linting and all this stuff like before like project 2. And they're like he was like going nuts about it, saying like, oh, like you should lint your code. I'm like, dude, I want to make sure it works. Like, I don't care about like if these like invisible people are judging my code. I want to make sure it works now. And then I'll worry about prettying it up for standards like later on.
Yeah.
So, you'll see it pop up a lot. I know like when I see things like this, I always get that weird like FOMO. Like I get like code FOMO where it's like, should I be using this? Like, am I wrong for not using this? So it's hard not to be stressed out by it, but I just try not to be stressed out by it.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, overall, this is pretty much it. I just kind of wanted to walk through a little bit more of a hefty constructor and kind of like walk through why we would separate everything and make everything happen the way it happens. And yeah, and like I think it's a good way to kind of softly introduce you guys to the .env package.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So later this week, is it this week? I think so. Or maybe it's next we're going to get you guys like set up with Heroku, where you'll be deploying. So we've been using GitHub Pages, obviously the first half of class. GitHub Pages doesn't have the ability to do anything with Node. It ignores Node. It just doesn't like it. It can't run like server side code. So we use Heroku to deploy things that have servers. So Heroku is just like, it's another version of, it's a lot like AWS and DigitalOcean and like all these other like app type sites. What do you say, Kanara?
I know, it's cloud services kind of thing.
Yeah, so like I'll go to my Heroku.
Yeah.
So these are all my apps. So by default, Heroku. Oh yeah, Nate, here's your API. Yeah, so by default, unless you pay them to, it'll sleep all of your apps because like they don't want to keep it running if you're not paying for them to keep it running.
Okay, yeah.
So like this is that big project I showed you with the like the Galaxy stuff I showed you early on in class.
Oh yeah.
So like I pay for these two to stay on at all times because it's always running. And it's like $7 a month. It's nothing crazy.
Is it $7 like for each one or?
Yeah, for each one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll go to this one.
So like how long does it sleep for? Like if I were to awaken it, I guess, and then how long would it take for them to sleep it again?
I forget what the inactivity time looks like. People have like little hacky ways of keeping that from happening where they basically like ping the site every once in a while.
Okay, yeah.
Like they like automate some way to ping the site. That way it kind of keeps it alive. So you go to an app, has all your metrics, got some errors, but I don't know. They kind of took the project off my hands, so on them.
So is there a
what'd you say?
Sorry, is there a limit to how many projects you can have, or?
No. So at some point they'll ask you for a credit card when you hit like a certain threshold.
Mm-hmm.
They'll never charge you for creating them. I don't know why they ask for your credit card. They just want it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it's like they think that you're getting serious about it. So maybe they just want to make it easier if you do want to add some things onto it.
Okay.
So, this is like what the backends and like what their environment looks like. So first thing, like you can go through all these tabs. So this is the information that it has. So I have this New Relic APM. This is the thing that keeps it on. So this one's actually free.
Mm.
But I also installed MySQL on it too. So I needed more speed. So I went with the $10 a month plan.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna go over this. They have free plans. So we can definitely work with the free plans. And it works pretty easy. It works really easily. You basically hit start and they give you all the code to bring in and you just copy it over.
Cool.
Yeah. Like they give you all like the database like login information that you'd pass in. So you have resources here. You can add like a bunch of stuff. Deploying, so they tell you like how to use Heroku Git. Like you'll deploy to it the same way that you deploy things to GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that you'd say git push Heroku master.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're adding another remote. So you'll have a remote for your GitHub and you'll have a remote for your Heroku.
So is this like on GitHub or?
It's not. You can do it through GitHub. Like you can see like connect to GitHub.
Okay, yeah.
I've never really messed with that too much. I kind of I don't know. I like doing things separately. At least I know if like it messes up that I messed it up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you have metrics, tells you like how everything's doing, speed, all this stuff. Activity. So it just shows like, what's going on here. So it shows like, it's basically showing my commits.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see I can roll back if I needed to, if like something was wrong.
Oh, cool.
You have access. So like if you guys were working together and you needed a collaborator, then you can add collaborators.
So it's very similar to GitHub.
Incredibly similar. The only difference is that like this is a little bit more of a more robust. Obviously, like you can't view your code here the same way as GitHub. Like you can't track, like you can't like do issues or anything like that. But kind of the way that you deploy it is the same exact thing as GitHub.
Okay.
Yeah, like you'd make all your changes. You do your git add, git commit, git push origin master. Then you would do git push Heroku master.
Okay.
So then lastly, we have our settings. And you can see here, we have config variables. Wow, my voice is shut. So if I hit reveal config vars, what does this look like to you guys?
Are those keys?
Yeah, it looks like the keys.
Yeah, so what do you think this is like?
.env.
Yeah, so this is how it knows that like by putting these in here, the same process.env, as long as we give them the same names as we give them here, it works when it's live.
Oh, cool.
So you have your .env file just for you. It's on your computer, your local machine. And then when you deploy it, it goes all into here. And you can just keep adding all of them as needed.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah.
And only you can see that, right?
Yeah, well, like anybody that has access to this
side,
this admin side of it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and this is like, Heroku is good for deploying stuff commercially, I think it's called, right? Or in production?
So yeah, when you start paying for like some of their add-ons, it's really good. I think by the time you guys are ready to like really push things live, you'd want to maybe check out like AWS or DigitalOcean's cool. But like as far as like you guys just getting up and running with like all your apps, since this is free, it's a really good place to like just put all your environment. Like you can just put all of your work up here. It's all free. It works really well.
Should we start like updating our previous works to work with the new technologies that we know now, or?
If you have time, I would say don't like, you know, if you have time and you want to do something cool, then go for it. You know, it's really just like how much time you guys have on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, since we're like ramping up and we have Project 2 coming in a couple weeks and stuff like that too. So, you know, it's a little bit different. It might be a little difficult for you guys. Just like a lot.
Yeah.
But like, it'll definitely be cool when, like, say you hit like you do like the jQuery, like the timers like trivia game. And you do like handlebars like as your front end, and then you can hit everything, like hit all of your endpoints, and then like save how you did in like a database or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's like a simple way of just tying them together. So I mean maybe we can do that one day in one of these classes, like one of these extra days. We can just do it together.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for tonight. Yeah. Cool. So do you guys have any questions on anything?
Kind of an off-topic question.
Okay.
So like I'm starting to get a lot of repositories. Should we start like deleting the ones that we don't use or
you know what, like you would maybe not, like I wouldn't get rid of any of the homeworks just yet.
Okay.
But like say any like BS ones or
I like the Thursday is cool one or whatever.
Yeah, like you can get rid of totally get rid of that one. Unless you made an app called Thursday is cool. So yeah, I would just like start cleaning them up a little bit, because you know that way when you can also pin repositories for your GitHub. So like when people go to your profile,
mm-hmm.
you can like pin them and you can, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That way people can see like the ones you really like.
Mm-hmm.
So they can like keep your choice notes up here, and then, you know, let them kind of go through your repos as needed.
Okay.
So yeah. All right. So I think we're all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. So I mean.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So do you guys like? Should we do this every week? Should we try to?
Yeah. I mean, this is really helpful.
Yeah. Maybe we'll come up with like
a lot,
like a new topic every week, and like, you know, we'll do like half review, half maybe just like talk about like freelancing or like the business side of web development, and not just like the development side.
Yeah.
You know, start getting your heads right for like looking for jobs and stuff.
Yeah, I'd like that. That'd be cool. Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be I'll try to pick a time for next week and we'll schedule it. Hopefully more people will come.
We'll tell them how great this one was, and then they'll all flock to it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Cool, guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Helped a lot.
Yeah. Take care. Tom, I'll see you tomorrow. And Mike and Nate, I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.